In California, the American dream of owning a home is dying a slow death. A recent study found that first-time homebuyers in the state are getting older and older. Census data shows that the age at which the majority of Californians are homeowners, also called the age of prevalence, is 49. 49 years old, that's by far the highest age in the country, with most states having the majority of their residents homeowners by their mid-30s. The median price for a house now tops $800,000, more than twice the national level. And let's just say the homes first-time buyers purchase don't look anywhere like this. But isn't everybody leaving California? And shouldn't that help solve the problem? In this video, we present the real reasons why the state's home crisis is getting worse and worse with no solution in sight. To perfectly understand the crisis, just imagine the party game of musical chairs where people compete for a decreasing number of chairs. With 5 other people, you might be initially competing for 5 chairs, and as the game continues, a decreasing number of people is competing for a decreasing number of chairs. Now, the housing market in California can be understood as a somewhat twisted game of musical chairs, where the chairs represent homes for sale and 4 out of the 5 chairs, or homes, are already occupied, and the people sitting on them are not willing to leave. Additionally, you're not only competing with 5 other people for the remaining inventory, but rather with a mass of people desperate to buy a house. So there's a lot more demand than there is supply. But why is that the case? Let's start by understanding why these people are unwilling to vacate their chairs or homes, therefore limiting the number of houses for sale. Well, imagine you're living in a nice home in California and the government comes around and guarantees that your property taxes will be determined by your home value at the time of purchase rather than by its current market value. Would that be an incentive to stay in the home you're already in? Well, that's exactly the case with California's Proposition 13 that passed in 1978. Here's how it works. Under Prop 13, a property is being valued at market value when it is first purchased. After that, the value goes up by California's Consumer Price Index, or CPI, to account for inflation. But if the CPI is above 2%, Prop 13 caps the increase at 2%. Let's look at a home with an initial market value of $500,000. In the second year, the assessed value would increase to a maximum of $510,000. In years 3, 4, and 5, the Prop 13 value then is $520,000, $531,000, and $541,000 respectively. So even though the actual market value might be significantly higher, Prop 13 protects residents from paying a significantly higher tax rate. The value resets once there is a change in ownership, and this reassessment then becomes the new starting point of value for the property. So why does that matter? Well, if you bought this $500,000 property 5 years ago, the basis for your property taxes is your Prop 13 value of $541,000. If you were to buy a similar home today, so not even an upgrade, with how prices have increased in the same time span, you would pay $752,000, which also becomes the new tax basis, leading to significantly higher property taxes. Other states don't have such provisions. For instance, finance guru Warren Buffett, when advising Arnold Schwarzenegger during his run for California governor in 2003, criticized Prop 13 by comparing the $14,410 he was paying in taxes on his $500,000 home in Nebraska to the $2,264 in taxes he was paying on his $4 million property in California. Overall, Prop 13 gives a lot of people a good reason to stay in their homes, or seated in their chairs if you will. If that wasn't enough, however, the COVID-19 pandemic led to an even bigger incentive to stay. When the pandemic emergency struck in March 2020, the Federal Reserve lowered its benchmark interest rate to near zero in an effort to lower borrowing costs and stimulate the economy to weather the pandemic-created downturn. Mortgage rates sank as low as 2.65%, compared to rates hovering around 4% in pre-pandemic years, according to data from mortgage giant Freddie Mac. Of course, a lot of people wanted to move, and this increased demand led to an increase in home prices. What's more though, the low rates made refinancing almost a no-brainer. Through refinancing, most homeowners are now locked in with substantially lower rates than they could get today. In 2022, the Fed wanted to start slowing down inflation and began to increase interest rates. The average 30-year mortgage rate is well above 7% as of this recording, compared to mortgage rates in the low 3% range only 2 years ago. Now look at the numbers to see what difference the interest rate makes when it comes to a monthly payment. Again, the median price for a home in California is well above $800,000. Even accounting for a 20% down payment, which is also increasingly harder to afford, a 7% interest rate on the financed $674,880 results in a monthly payment of $4,490 compared to a 3% mortgage with a monthly payment of $2,845. That's a 58% higher monthly payment, not even including taxes and fees. That increase is even more substantial when a buyer cannot come up with at least 20% down payment. Now, the Fed has signaled several interest rate reductions for 2024. However, this will have to happen at a decent pace to not create another buying frenzy along with price hikes. The rates as they are, of course, keep a lot of people in their homes because the costs of switching homes are simply too high. At the same time, many people are just priced out of the market. As of December 2023, an annual income of $221,200 is needed to afford monthly payments for a medium-priced home in California. Only 16% of households can actually do that. In 2018, that income requirement was almost half, with $120,120. Still, that has not stopped people from buying homes. Today, especially the market for new builds is booming, and builders can keep up with the demand. There are still enough people who are willing and or able to pay the prices. They may want to buy a property before increasing prices make it harder to come up with a necessary down payment for their desired home. They may simply want to avoid a buying frenzy once rates go back down and instead pay higher rates for a couple of years to then refinance their mortgage at a lower rate. The high demand for houses is also maintained by migrants to California who are typically more educated and have higher incomes than their counterparts leaving the state. Now, this begs the question, why haven't you already clicked the like button to help us with the YouTube algorithm? Or the subscribe button? There you go. Thank you for your support. Now, the real question is, if most chairs are already occupied and people are unwilling to vacate them, why don't we just add more chairs to the game to accommodate the consistently high demand? Why don't we build more homes at a faster rate? Well, part of the issue is California's geography, which is hemmed in by mountains and sea. Housing cannot expand as fast as in relatively flat areas such as Texas or Arizona. Cities in those states can build new housing relatively cheaply on their outskirts. 80% of California's large metro areas, however, are in the top 10 most compact cities in the US. In other words, there is not much new land to build on, and it might get even worse as the increase in wildfires in the last years may limit construction in previously available areas. So that means that it's necessary to build more densely in the existing spaces. Of course, this is a challenging task, especially because of zoning laws. These are locally set rules that regulate where homes can and can't be built, how many units a building can have in it, and essentially how densely housing can be built. The challenge is that in California, 2/3 of all residences are single-family homes, and as much as 3/4 of the developable land in the state is now zoned only for single-family housing, according to UC Berkeley research. So any single lot in such zones can only accommodate one family. You cannot even build a duplex or fourplex in the lot that would allow a lower entry price point for people purchasing their first home. Effectively, single-family zoning leads to fewer homes being built, and that's hard to change. Local residents may engage in not-in-my-backyard practices, eager to maintain the character of their neighborhood and the market values for their homes. Recent changes in state laws are said to only have a minimal impact in changing single-family zoning. These are just some insights into the home crisis in California. Much more needs to be discussed, such as how minorities are disproportionately affected or how California's bureaucracy delays funding and the start of shovel-ready projects for affordable housing. However, we can conclude that an easy solution is not in sight, and the state's real estate market may continue as a highly competitive game of musical chairs for many, many years to come. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and check out some of our other content.